Fire. This week on the $1 Million Plan, we talked to Chris. Chris has got that issue that many of us have, or many of us fear, when someone else's financial challenges become your financial challenges. And oh, by the way, you're still dealing with your own financial challenges. He joins us now. Chris, he's 36 years old. Hello, my friend.
Good afternoon.
Oh, well, it's you never know. Someone could be listening to this in the morning, and you've just thrown off their internal clock. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
really.
My apologies.
So you got one of those classic issues that is so uncomfortable to talk about that you're going to squirm as we talk about it. I'm going to squirm as we talk about it. And then when you tell your wife that you talked about it, she's going to squirm too. Lay it out for us.
Right. So I think something my wife and I have been dealing with for a couple of years now. It's my father-in-law and mother-in-law. It really just kind of came to light for us probably about 5 years ago that we started to notice some of the financial decisions that they were making. We just kind of questioned, weren't sure exactly why they were doing certain things they were doing. That ranged from a bankruptcy about 5 years ago. Now what we're looking at is my in-laws, in order to meet their retirement goals, if you will, what they want to do, they are looking to downsize in their home.
Okay.
And where that has led us, in about 2 or 3 weeks from now, it looks like they're going to be moving in with us for what we understand right now to be a short time frame. But there are still just a lot of questions out there as to how this is all going to play out. We know because of the bankruptcy, it may cause some issues with them trying to purchase a home. We also know that they just are both very compulsive spenders. There have been things where they have just come across, found a bank account that they didn't know existed, and decided to purchase a golf cart.
Sure.
Shortly after post-bankruptcy, it was go buy a new motorcycle and get a new car. But the hardest part is, though, anytime we try to mention to them or have a discussion about how things are going, especially now with them looking for a home, how long they may think they'll be staying with us, it's just really up in the air. They don't know, and they're just really not willing to communicate with us at all about it. And I think what we're afraid of is what right now may seem like some short-term issues is going to turn into long-term, and how that's going to impact us as well. I mean, like you said earlier, we're still pushing through some of our own financial challenges. We feel like we're making a lot of headway on things, but it's just such a big bubble out there of just the unknown. And really just want to see what your insight is on how can you have these conversations with family. I mean, it's obviously a very personal thing. We understand that. But how do we open this dialogue?
Well, I can tell you right now, Chris, you're not alone. There's a lot of people in your situation. I don't know if that makes it easier, but it's true. Let's start here. Your in-laws, or does your sister have any siblings? Or your sister, your wife. Hopefully your wife and your sister are not one and the same. Does your wife have any siblings?
Yeah, she has one sister. And what's kind of interesting about going that direction is my brother-in-law was for a short time in the financial industry, had a little glimpse of kind of their financial situation as far as investments, insurance. But even then, they weren't willing to share too much with him. But that is also part around the time when a lot of concerns started to rise up. When he saw a little glimpse of what they were working with, I think he kind of predicted this day was going to come.
How can you give me an approximate age? Are they both north of 65 years old, or are they younger than 65?
He is 62 and she is 58.
And
together.
Is there a pension involved? Do either of them have a pension?
Yeah, so my father-in-law has a pension from his job. My mother-in-law, as far as we know, has never done anything as far as retirement savings through any of her employment history. And that's another part that kind of led to this was he was able to retire last year. I think she just kind of had a challenging time knowing he was retired and she still needed to work. So I think that's kind of what led to this discussion of let's downsize, let's do what we need to do. It's really they're making some rash decisions to get to retirement rather than what my wife and I would think are smart or wise decisions to get to a good point to retire.
Yeah, it's funny. What you've told me so far, all I can think is they're not even working together.
No. No,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, there's, and they will admit that there's zero communication between them on game plan and strategy and financial decisions. It's just one rash decision after another.
Not that labeling this or naming it is going to make it any easier, but man, does this not sound like a midlife crisis?
Oh, it absolutely does. That like like I mentioned, as soon as retirement hit, it was buy a motorcycle,
Yeah.
get a new car, and I think part of it was my wife has always said that when they were younger, they always struggled to get by. They kept things very tight and didn't have a very luxurious life. Well, now I think that became achievable to some standard, and they just go for it.
What's the nature of the bankruptcy debt? Was it medical? Was it consumer debt? What was it?
We never really got a clear picture on that. They were not comfortable at all discussing with us, and the only reason we found out, my wife has one student loan that is under their name.
Okay.
We make the payment, so we went to make the payment, and our check was sent back to us, so we had to talk to my mother-in-law, and she said, well, yeah, we actually went through this bankruptcy process. But as far as my father-in-law knows, we have no concept of that. He was very private about it, didn't want anyone to know. It was clear by other things that, they didn't have a credit card anymore. They were paying with a debit card. They stopped purchasing new cars. I think the first 5 years I knew them, they both got a new car every year. So I think there was a lot of compiling of debt, just putting themselves in bad positions. And I think even the bankruptcy was a rash decision. I don't think it was something probably necessary. I think it was just the easy out.
Sure. Yeah. Are you and your wife on the same page in relation to their situation, or do you have different feelings about it?
Yeah, and I think my wife and I are on the same page. Even my sister-in-law and her husband are on the same page. We just have a lot of questions as to, like, where does the money go? I mean, it's gotten to a point where we sometimes question, is there something else out there that we don't know about that they're not sharing either? They have a pretty healthy income. About a year ago, he was making close to $100,000, and she was making close to $50,000. So we just couldn't figure out where does the money go. And not that we need to know that information, but as the pictures become more clear that they went through bankruptcy, they're now moving in with us. We don't believe they have a real stable retirement in place.
Did they come to you to move in with you, or did you give sort of you could stay with us, and then they bit hard?
Yeah, a little bit of that at the end there. And it was kind of we owed them one.
Okay.
I had a job transfer about 5 years ago out of the military into the private sector, and at that point, we didn't know exactly where we were going, so they extended the offer to move in with them, which we did. It was supposed to be about a 3-week stay until our closing fell through, so then it turned into a 3-month. So, kind of feeling obligated to return the offer, and they jumped on it. And we really have no issue with them moving in short term. I think it will help with, some child care expenses and some other operational things around the house. But about 2 weeks ago, they said they're not looking for a house right now. They've kind of backed away from that for the immediate time frame. And then, we come to find out, well, they don't really have approval from the bank yet.
Yeah, they couldn't. There's no way.
No, exactly. So they always seem to find a way to kind of work through the system. For instance, getting new cars. I mean, literally a month out of bankruptcy, getting a new car and a motorcycle, and I only can imagine what they pay in interest. But, we feel like it probably is a possibility that in some way they're going to find a rental property or a house.
Yeah.
We've been trying to edge them towards, maybe rent until things settle down. If you're going to jump into retirement like this, take a little bit of time, get a rental property, see what your financial situation is like before you open another can of worms.
Are they taking on like the basement or the guest bedroom? Like, what are the logistics of that?
So we have a spare bedroom up on the second floor, and we're just trying to stuff some of their furniture into the downstairs living rooms. And, logistically, it's going to be a little tight. So we'll see how this works out. I wish we did have an in-law suite. That would make life a little easier. But, it's going to be cramped quarters for a little while.
How many children do you have?
3 kids.
Okay.
And that's, I think, also part of their decision to jump into retirement was wanting to spend more time with the grandchildren. Totally understand it. But Yeah, that's, right now we've got 2 in school, 1 that we're still paying childcare. So when grandma moves in, that helps with the childcare issue for us.
Well, that's nice. I mean, so just,
Yeah,
that frees up a few $100 a month at least.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I wish that the answer was as simple as like just you walking around naked more frequently and like freaking them out and making them want to leave. But unfortunately, it's not. And my dad has this
Right.
phrase. I don't know why he says this so frequently. It makes me nervous because maybe he's saying it about me. But my dad always says this phrase: "You can pick your friends, you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your family." Right? And,
Right.
and this is like, and what that is to mean is you just have to figure it out, right? You can't do anything about it other than figure it out. So the natural things of, well, let's set a date of when we'd like you to move on. Unfortunately, that ship has already sailed because they're already on their way in. And to have that conversation, not only is it odd, but it doesn't even fit because there has been no rules so far, right?
Right.
And it's not like you want to deliver them the user's guide to your house when they arrive on their bed with like, wash your towels, get out
Exactly.
in January. Like,
Right.
oh man, now, this is a tough one, man. All I can say is it's really good that your sister. God, why do I keep calling your wife your sister? What state am I doing this podcast? All I can say is it's really good that your wife and her sister agree on this. That is super important.
Yeah.
Have you guys thought about like the old school like family meeting thing?
I don't think that my wife and sister-in-law have gotten to that point. They feel like they need to go to that limit, but there has been just a lot of just little meetings between them. It seems, when we get family get-togethers and stuff, it comes up every time we're all together of just, what's the next catastrophe going to be? Who's going to take them? When someone has a medical issue and they need to be, living with somebody, what's the plan then? Because we just really don't feel confident they've gotten that far out and able to take care of themselves. A whole other can of worms to open there is they're both going through some medical challenges or issues right now. My father-in-law still has good health insurance plan through his previous employer, but my mother-in-law does not.
Okay.
She's, as far as we understand right now, she's in some type of insurance co-op, so she's not claiming medical insurance when she does have an issue come up. We're not even really sure that she, what quality of insurance she does have, but she was in the emergency room just a week ago for an issue. So,
and I ask this next question, and I hope those listening give me a chance to explain why I'm asking it after I ask it. Have either of them had any mental health challenges?
I wouldn't go so far as to say mental health challenges, but there have been some family, a loss of a really close family member that I think, and this was probably about 7 or 8 years ago, and I think that is probably around the same time we started to notice some of this just quick reaction, live life to its fullest right now, like you never know if you'll be here. 'Cause this was a very unexpected loss for the family, so I think that also kind of transitioned into I want to spend as much time as I can with my grandkids. I don't know if I'll be here next year to enjoy this vacation, so let's all plan a trip to Disney, just all of these things that I think just trying to live life to its fullest, even though it may be causing more issues.
And I'm obviously not a psychologist, but there's a hint of compulsion that you're talking about here. And I recently wrote about this in my column. 6% of the population suffers what's called CBD, compulsive buying disorder, and it almost is like they've got this little bit of a stage going on in which they're suffering from CBD. Either that or that awakening of we got to live life to the fullest just sort of went off the rails, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Who's got the best rapport with them of the four? You, your wife, her sister, and her husband. Who's got the best direct rapport?
I think my sister-in-law lives closest to them, sees them on the most regular basis. They tend to rely on my wife a lot for not so much like guidance and decisions, but I think my sister-in-law is a little bit younger than my wife, so I think they rely on my wife a little bit more, just for, maybe helping encourage whatever their decision is going to be on other things, like, for instance, this move. They've been in communication with my wife more than they have my sister-in-law.
You know what I keep thinking about as we're talking here is that this isn't about you not wanting to help them. In fact, this goes well beyond that. This is about you wanting to help them.
Right.
And them living with you on an open-ended contract is not helping them. And that's what you're concerned about.
True. Right. Right.
Do you think your sister-in-law, I'm trying not to weasel around this, but I mean, it seems like she could at some point say, hey, how long do you plan on staying there? I mean, is that in the cards, or I'm just thinking out loud at this point, right?
Yeah, possibly. What also kind of makes it a little interesting, my sister-in-law and her husband he is potentially in a job transition himself, so they may be moving as well. So it kind of, and that's also part of their hesitation to buy right now, is not knowing where my sister-in-law may be going. So depending where their family ends up, they may want to live closer to us, closer to them, try and find somewhere in the middle. So we hope in the next month or two it'll kind of be determined what their status is, where they're going, and that will get the ball rolling on when my in-laws may go. But I think my wife and I also know there's some possibility that with my mother-in-law quitting her job to enter into retirement and the financial situation maybe not being what they were anticipating, maybe having challenges actually getting a loan, that this may turn into a 6 month, a year, and then I would imagine at that point we'll probably say let's find a rental property we can help you out with.
Yeah, see, look, I mean, I'll be honest, that's the way it feels it's going. Like there's nothing you've said that makes it feel like we're out in 3 months, which I think you would be happy with, right?
Yeah, I think ideally 3 or 4 months, but my wife and I have also had the conversation of we don't want them to feel like they have to leave just to get out of our house. Our preference would be, they've adjusted to what their new retirement income is. They find a property that's, right for them. And given that we also know that my brother-in-law is listing their house for them. He's now doing some realty work, but we know they're basically awash on their house right now, so it's not that they're going to have anything to put down on a home. We know they're going to likely jump back into a 30-year loan, at the age of 60 or so. So I think for us, our preference is, maybe don't stay as long as you need to, but, don't put yourself in a bind just to get out of our house.
I think you got to have a target date, man. I really do.
Yeah.
I think waiting to set a target date is a mistake. I think somehow in conversation, the the two siblings and the husbands sit and say, all right, we'd like something by February 5th. I'm picking numbers out of the sky. I don't really care what it is. Because if you don't set that, man, it's going to be this escalation of commitment thing that always scares me, where the longer it goes on, it all of a sudden it's naturally that way into the change is to undo it, and that's what's hard.
Right.
Let's pause on that for a second, although naturally we probably shouldn't, because I want to hit your financial life too, just to give people a perspective of what you've been able to put together. At 36, your household income is $130,000 with a take-home pay of $8,700 a month. You've got $133,000 set aside for the long term. $1,500 a month, which includes your match, is going towards your retirement, which makes your $1 million day. I'm pulling that up now. It is February 6th of 2033. When you are 67 years old, you'll have roughly $4 million if you keep doing exactly what you're doing now. It'll have a net monthly income of $9,300 a month, which will feel like in today's dollars $4,300 a month. So while your retirement is not absolutely perfected at $4,300 a month in today's dollars, it's pretty good. I mean, you've made some tough decisions. It sounds like you've served your country. You've transitioned into the civilian workforce. And I think that's probably what's so frustrating about this is that you've had to make hard choices too. And you've sacrificed in more ways than one. And here you find yourself dealing with this situation.
absolutely. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there that, my wife and I, with having childcare and paying off college, we've had several moves of our own because of the military and then, transitioning and some job changes. So, we've really made an attempt to attack our debt this last year. I think we paid off a little over $30,000 total in debt. And thankfully have a very helpful retirement plan through my employer, so that helps quite a bit. But yeah, we've tried to go kind of all in on debt, all in on retirement, because we know obviously we're going to retire one day. But we're also at a point right now that, we've paid off quite a bit of debt. We keep rolling it over to the next thing.
Sure.
But I think probably our biggest, I don't want to say concern, but our biggest question right now is just, I've got 7, 5, and a 3-year-old. So obviously college savings is out there. And it's almost like a three-headed dragon of paying off the remaining debt, looking at retirement, and looking at college savings, and just trying to figure out, do we have the right balance? Do we need to shift more to college than retirement? Do we need to back off on paying off some debt? I think my wife and I are on the same page of no, let's just keep attacking that right now. But
to your point, like you've got $6,500 left in medical bills, $13,700 in student loans, and $26,000 between 2 car loans. See, that all sets up for a couple years from now. You were so cash flow positive that it's almost disgusting, right?
Yeah, right. We get to when I start looking out 3 to 4 years of our budget now compared to what it'll be in 2020. Yeah, it's almost like, okay, let's put a ton into retirement, a ton into, savings, and really start working at college savings. I just want to make sure we don't get too far behind on that, because obviously, as you know, it works in your advantage to save up front here. But yeah, like you said, it's we put all this effort into doing all this for ourselves, and we feel like we're hopefully setting ourselves up for success further down the road. But I don't want to say a great cloud, but just a huge unknown out there with the in-law situation.
So you've got $28,000 in savings, which to me means your short term is stable as well. How much are you going to free up with the daycare situation, do you think, a month?
This is probably the biggest year that we've had for daycare, because we're doing pre-K plus child care kind of together.
Okay.
So right now we're paying about $500 a month for the two. When my mother-in-law moves in, that helps with the child care, but we're still paying some pre-K expenses. But yeah, I envision, about 3 years from now, hopefully that's another $5,000-$6,000 a year that, we'll free up to do for other things.
Yeah, I would think any child care cost you free up now or later needs to just directly go to college. I don't think there's any reason to roll that into debt or towards your future. Just keep it assigned to the kids indefinitely.
Yeah. Yep.
Here's another thing I thought about as we're talking here, and it's a real concern, and this is a concern for parents of young adults, right? So think about your student graduates from college, moves back in with you, and here's the big concern: if they move in, set their new lifestyle and spending around not having living expenses from a homeownership perspective,
right?
They'll never get out. Because they have no room in their budget, and they've sort of reshaped themselves around this new discretionary spending. That's terrifying, man. That's why a lot of people should charge rent when people are trying to go through the situation. But, that opens a whole other can of worms, right?
Right. Yeah, and that was something, we when the conversation first came up about the moving in, we've never had that discussion of, are you going to chip in this much for utilities? Are you going to, help us out with other, are you going to, help out the family a little bit being here? But my wife and I, kind of like you said, we've had that discussion of, well, if we're hoping that they get in a better financial situation. Maybe it's better that they, take 5-6 months worth of expenses and save that up. But like you said, we may be setting them up for failure as well. Yeah. Plus, we kind of feel like if they're helping out with child care, and we're saving on the other side as well, so maybe it's help each other out.
Yeah.
But no, I agree. I think it's scary that, if they go 6 months without, house payment and utility payments, I would have no hard time seeing them say, we booked a trip to California for the family, or, you know.
That's the big concern. And again, my goal on this call and this discussion and episode is not to make bold statements, but that is the big fear. The big fear is that they can't find margin in their budget once they become dependent on rent-free living. And so
Right.
if anything you're going to do, I mean, you're going to try to, again, we're going to try to put a time stamp of saying February 10th is the day or whatever. And I think the other thing is to say, where are you going to put your $1,000 a month to prove to yourself that you have $1,000 in your month in a budget so you can get the hell out? Like, that's
Right.
I mean, I'll be honest, that's the scariest part. That part's the scariest part, because especially if they're going through some sort of mental health financial crisis right now, which it seems like they are.
Right. Yeah.
Man, I'm not helpful, am I? Sorry, Chris.
Well, hey, I thought this would probably be one of the more challenging questions you've ever had, because it's the hard thing for us. It's not a formula. It's not numbers you can punch in and move around, and it's sometimes hard to have those conversations with your own spouse, let alone
It's so true.
another family member.
Yeah, so I got to think, man. I think you find a way amongst the four of you, sister-in-law and brother-in-law, to talk about this sooner rather than later and pick 4 categories, right? Pick when are you getting out? What are you going to do with the money that will allow you to get out? What are you facing now? And I know they keep pushing back, but at some point you're going to have to drop the bomb we've all been waiting for you to drop, which is, hey, if you're going to live with us, then I got to know this, right? I mean,
Right.
No one wants to say that. You don't want to say it to your father-in-law.
Right. No, absolutely not. And it's kind of interesting. My mother-in-law, I have absolutely no doubt, if we said you guys could stay here for 30 years, she would do that in a heartbeat. My father-in-law, on the other hand, I think 4 or 5 days in a row with the grandkids, he needs a little break. So I see him being the one to keep pushing to move out. So
Yeah, I mean, you know what? This is on your kids now. Like, I love my kids, but too much time with my kids will make a man want to move. You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah.
So you just hopefully your kids aren't as annoying as my lovely kids are, but if they are, get them in that room a lot. Wake up every day. I want bedtime stories.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Oh, man. Anything else I cannot assist with, since I clearly didn't have any answers? First of all, I just want to really thank you for sharing that, because, man, that's hard. And I mean, transparent communication is going to be the only way out. And unfortunately, there's that age when you sort of switch roles with your parents, that weird, uncomfortable time in a person's life.
Yeah.
And you're there, man, and it requires you to bust chops.
Yep.
Anything else I can not assist with?
No, I think that's been pretty helpful. We're I had a few conversations with friends and a couple people that have gone through this before, and kind of how it worked out for them. And there's definitely not a magic bullet to it, and I don't think there's really the best answer. It's just trying to figure each piece out. But
there is a big unknown here. You're right about that. There is something you don't know, and it's not salacious or weird or nasty. I mean, I don't know. I've seen a lot of these. Sometimes it's something as peculiar as like a gambling addiction. Like, you just never know what the other thing is.
Yeah, I mean, my wife and sister-in-law and brother-in-law, I mean, we've had those conversations, because we know they do some of those activities. They like to gamble. They like to take trips here and there. But yeah, and sometimes we get way out there of, is there, a sister or a brother that they don't know about? So,
yeah.
But,
right.
We just feel like with the situation and the little bit that we do know, we all feel pretty strongly there's something there we don't know about. But I think we always just settle back into, well, they're compulsive spenders. They can't have a penny in their pocket, and they don't communicate with each other on it. It's just they spend what they want and they figure it out later. But we don't see the end result of, they don't drive a BMW. They don't have, the nicest things in the world. They have a lot of things, and they tend to upgrade frequently, or at least, change frequently. But
He doesn't have like a tattoo of like an ace of spades on his forearm or anything?
No, I mean, he did upgrade from his Suzuki bike to a Harley, but it was not definitely not a bike club Harley.
Could you ride a motorcycle? I am definitely not manly enough to strap onto a hog and ride that thing.
No, I think I know what my self-control limits are. I don't think I would be able to abide by the law on a motorcycle.
See?
So
That's smart.
Yeah.
That's why I stick to fishing. It's boring and wonderful. It's the greatest thing in the world.
Perfect.
All right, Chris, can you update us? I mean, please, just shoot us an email. I got to know now. I feel like I'm invested in this.
Yeah, absolutely. And 6 months from now, if they're still around and you're looking for a roommate, I'll let you know.
Yeah, and if you need to email me separately, you can get my email address from Nicole, who you've worked with to be on the show, and be glad to communicate with you that way as well. All right.
Great. Thank you very much for your help today. It's been helpful.
My pleasure. All right, that's it for this week's show. Man, you can pick your friends, you can pick your nose, you can't pick your family. I mean, that's a guy that wants to help so badly, and if you don't look closely, it looks like a person that doesn't want to help, but that's just not the case. I mean, there's something going on there. I've seen this too often where there is a big unknown. I don't know what it is, and I'm not even going to speculate and guess. If you're in this situation, the best thing you can do, if you feel like you're going to be in this situation, ground rules are the best to set. You gotta use, hey, we'd like you to try to find different plans by February 15th, like very specific days. Don't say things like the spring or sometime next year. That's way too open-ended. And when it comes to making sure that someone can get out, make sure that they don't acclimate to their new lifestyle with you and increase their spending on discretionary things. Because if they do, they'll never find the money to then pay rent somewhere. All right, that's it. I'm done. Best of luck to Chris. I'm excited. If I get an update, I'll give it to you. I'm done. Peace.
This is where I came from. Planet Lovetron, where we drop love bombs, funk missiles, and live in soul shelters. No helter skelter. The heat don't swelter because everybody stays cool. Left many moons ago to bring the philosophies of my ancestors to another place, God. Picked the third rock, gave me to my earth family, and told me to create, and so I am. Pen in my hand, microphone on the stand. Over vinyl, I command and demand. Magnificence in an instance, I can make you dance, cry, or love. Fly as a dove, released from Everest. The fresh is fresh, and you can call me E.T. Word to John Tesh. Let me bless this harmonic presentation. It's amazing, so amazing. I'm the reason. Salutations, I bring you Lovetron greetings from a faraway land. I am the sole controller. Put the remote down and let me take control. You're now a part of my zone, so enjoy yourself. Lovetron can restore your health. I bring you greetings, salutations. How you doing? And is that how y'all say it? The tinkling of the keys is an homage to the little star. I sojourn over poetic descriptions of sound and travel to my other world. Out of this world, spaceship on my arm took me home, fueled by the ink and the megabytes and the hypertext transfer protocol, stronger than the Skynet and the Terminator. I push faders into warp speed, glide with ease, creating a breeze they call a black hole. Event horizon, no rear view concerns. This I adjourn, in beats I burn. This I adjourn, in beats I burn. Salutations, I bring you Lovetron greetings from a faraway land. I am the sole controller. Put the remote down and let me take control. You're now a part of my zone, so enjoy yourself. Lovetron can restore your health. I bring you greetings, salutations. How you doing? And is that how y'all say it?